If nothing else, Hollywood really loves a good heist story. From Audrey Hepburn's Nicole Bonnet attempting to steal a fake before it is sold in 1966's How to Steal a Million, to George Clooney, Brad Pitt and company robbing a casino of a cool $160 million in 2001's Ocean's 11, there's nothing more thrilling than pulling off that one big score. Yet, infamous French thief Stéphane Breitweiser has a robbery story that rivals any, whether it is real or not. In 1994, while visiting the Musée des Amis de Thann, located in Alsace, France, Breitweiser spotted an antique pistol on display. At the age of 22, Breitweiser considered himself a lover of all things art. While standing before the ancient weapon, hand-carved in 1730, with his girlfriend Anne-Catherine Kleinklaus looking out, Breitweiser reached out, opened the glass case, and grabbed the pistol. With no security system and no guards, Breitweiser and Kleinklaus left the museum unaccented. Stéphane Breitweiser, born 1 October 1971, is a French art thief and author, notorious for his art thefts between 1995 and 2001. He admitted to stealing 239 artworks and other exhibits from 172 museums while traveling around Europe and working as a waiter, an average of one theft every 15 days. The Guardian called him arguably the world's most consistent art thief. So, besides all these, how only one person did get his hands on $1.4 billion. What was the whole plot? How did he manage to elude the authorities? You will get to know this and plenty more as we dive into details. So sit tight and stay tuned with us till the end of this video. However, before that, here's a quick reminder that you can subscribe for free and like the video so that we can boost the algorithm. Comments are most welcome. In May 1997, a security guard spotted something suspicious in a museum in Lucerne, Switzerland. The spot where one of the museum's artworks usually hangs on the wall is empty. The security officer has just observed two visitors, a man and a woman, leave the front entrance quickly. This is a modest museum with a small number of visitors each day. Running outside, the guard spots the pair getting into a car. And sure enough, the missing painting from the museum is resting on the back seat. As fate would have it, the museum is conveniently located next to a police station, and the burglars are soon taken into custody. However, it becomes evident throughout the subsequent trial that the man is profoundly sorry for taking the painting, which was a last-minute choice he now regrets. The individual is released with a suspended sentence and does not serve any jail time because his criminal record is clean. The fact that the Swiss authorities had just let the greatest art thief in history elude them was unknown at the time. This is the amazing tale of Stéphane Breitweiser, a Frenchman who stole works of art valued at approximately $1.55 billion. In order to beat Stéphane Breitweiser's record, you would still need to steal another $500 million worth of artwork. To put that figure in perspective, if you were to put on your best cat burglar outfit right this second and steal the three most expensive paintings ever sold at auction, Leonardo da Vinci's Salvator Mundi, $450 million, Wilhelm de Koenig's Interchange, $300 million, and Suzanne's The Card Players, $250 million, you would still fall short. The sheer amount of artwork Stéphane took is truly almost unbelievable, but what he did with it all after he had taken it may be even more unbelievable. Staring at a portrait by German artist Christian Wilhelm Dietrich, Stéphane had a strange impulse that occasionally happens to all of us, a fleeting and strong urge to do something we really shouldn't, like leap off a bridge, assault a passerby, or steal a piece of art. By the way, don't feel bad if you occasionally feel like downing an OAP. In fact, this type of inappropriate inclination is so widespread that it has its own name. Cacoethus. Cacoethus only lasts a few milliseconds for most individuals, but Stéphane's lingered long enough for him to mention it to his new girlfriend. As far as art heists go, this one wasn't the most thrilling, but his new girlfriend was totally on board. All Stéphane had to do was remove this picture from its frame, slide the canvas into his knapsack, and stroll out the front door, because the castle was practically unoccupied. It may have been anticlimactic, but a worldwide art criminal career, the likes of which the world had never seen before, had just begun. Thus, over the next 6 years, Stéphane pulled off 239 successful art heists at 172 galleries in at least 7 different nations. So, how did he pull it off? I mean, art thievery isn't traditionally regarded as a stable long-term career option, sooner or later, you'll either get caught or acquire enough money to retire on your own private island in Micronesia. You're wrong if you imagine gigantic heists with Ocean's 11-style planning and massive teams of professionals. There were no cleverly crafted distractions, detailed museum schematics, or jaunts via strategically placed art vents. In fact, many heists were not even performed at night. They occurred during business hours, frequently with tourists and security officers in the same room. Stéphane had observed that whereas large galleries such as Louvre's and MoMA's have sophisticated security measures that make Fort Knox appear like a drafty henhouse, small galleries had the security of a piece of Swiss cheese. Most rely on the general good faith of their patrons and the assumption, often incorrect, that every piece of art is secured with bolts and fitted with an alarm. In summary, great works of art are occasionally frightfully simple to steal outside of the famous few. Each of Stéphane's heists was a bit different, but they were all so simple that it was almost funny. He basically waited until no one was watching, picked up whatever he wanted, and walked out the front door. During the course of around 20 minutes, paintings would be removed from their frames and concealed inside a loose-fitting coat. Display cases would be opened by turning a screwdriver one turn at a time. The most advanced tool Stéphane had was a telescopic radio antenna from the 1950s, which he used to nudge any CCTV cameras that were awkwardly positioned to turn away from whatever it was he was about to take. I should note that estimates for the precise worth of the artwork Stéphane stole range, although number most frequently cited is the $1.4 billion figure we described earlier. If the New York Times estimate of the amount was accurate, Stéphane Breitweiser, the art thief, would have been among the world's top 250 richest persons as of 2001, when the astonishing crime spree came to an untimely halt. Although it wasn't obvious from his appearance to the outside world, Stéphane and Anne-Catherine, his longtime lover, appeared to be completely broke. The explanation is kind of amusing. Stéphane didn't become the greatest art thief in the world to become wealthy quickly. Instead of selling the works he had stolen, he kept them in the apartment he lived with Anne-Catherine because he liked art and wanted to enjoy having and admiring them. The apartment in question, incidentally, was in the attic of Stéphane's mother's home in Mulhouse, France. Almost $1 billion worth of priceless fine art was displayed on the couple's drab walls, scattered across side tables and piled in corners, despite the fact that they were so destitute they couldn't afford to rent. A collection that would have been unmatched by many galleries throughout the globe. Though Stéphane was a tremendously effective burglar, it was his peculiar desire to keep the items he had taken rather than sell them that gave him the freedom to do so for such a long time. Many art thieves, manage to safely flee the crime scenes with their loot, but selling a piece of art that is internationally renowned is a fairly tough business. You can't just create an eBay listing and wait for the market to erupt in million-pound bids. Getting the word out about your recent, highly illegal art theft is arguably riskier than the stealing part was in the first place, which is why it's at this stage of the process of the sale that many art thieves are ultimately caught and brought to justice. This kind of thing is tiny, and to access that, you're probably going to need to make friends with some very dangerous people to help you get the word out. The police were never going to capture Stéphane since he never listed any of his works of art for sale. So if they didn't catch him robbing, they weren't going to catch him at all. Because of how peculiar Stéphane's crime spree was, the police had no real notion of who or what they were dealing with. In total, Stéphane Breitweiser collected 60 paintings and 112 assorted rare objects. In November of 2001, Breitweiser was apprehended by authorities leaving a museum in Lucerne, Switzerland. Charged with stealing a bugle dated back to the 14th century, Breitweiser was caught going back to the scene of the crime to remove any fingerprints he may have left behind when he initially swiped the bugle, the incident about which we discussed in the introduction. In 1997, Stéphane was apprehended in Lucerne for stealing a picture. He had only received a slap on the wrist at the time, but when he was arrested, his fingerprints were taken. After that, he took extra care to wear gloves when robbing people to make sure his prints couldn't be connected to his earlier arrest. But Stéphane neglected to put on the latex gloves he had brought, which meant that if the cops happened to check the bugle's display case for prints while he was stealing it, the game was over. Furthermore, to add insult to injury, this bugle was discovered in the Richard Wagner Museum in Lucerne. Of all places, the same city where he had been apprehended the first time. Stéphane returned to the museum 2 days later in an effort to hide his tracks. It was determined that Anne should be the one to erase the prints because the bugle task had been one of his rare solo operations. But because this was a perilous job, Stéphane decided to accompany her for some psychological support. Stéphane walked around the grounds of the museum as Anne entered it to take his mind off his worries. Unfortunately for him, he was recognized by a man who'd seen him at the museum on the day of the theft. The police were called, and Stéphane soon found himself being arrested for a second time. To begin with, he wasn't unduly concerned. After all, he'd been caught before and gotten away with it all. He had to do was convince the police he was a remorseful first offender, just like he had the last time. And at first, that little ruse seemed to be effective, but then something changed. The officers holding Stéphane stopped engaging with him, and the sympathy his remorseful idiot routine had earned him evaporated overnight. While the stealing of priceless art was no laughing matter, the worst was still yet to come. Stéphane Breitweiser's mother, Marielle Stengel, took matters into her own hands when she learned her son had been arrested. According to GQ, Stengel and his girlfriend Anne-Catherine Kleinklaus, at least according to Breitweiser, began destroying the priceless cachet. Paintings were burned and destroyed in hopes of getting rid of the evidence. Ancient tapestries were carelessly tossed into the woods, along with coins and jewelry being dumped into a nearby canal. While many of the objects were recovered, most of the paintings were not. For the theft and destruction of $1.4 billion worth of art, Stéphane Breitweiser was sentenced to 26 months in prison. His mother, Marielle, received a sentence of 18 months, and girlfriend Anne-Catherine Kleinklaus was given a term of 6 months in prison for acting as a lookout. So, with that tragic end of a modest crook, we have reached the end of today's show. Which aspect of his personality has surprised you the most? Do let us know in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that thumbs up. It will help us to understand our audience and allows YouTube to suggest similar videos to you. Thanks for watching. We hope to see you at the next one.